All right. Thank you so much, everybody, for sticking in here. We are your closing act for the day. And by closing act, I only mean closing of panels. We are not the closing act. The closing act is actually the wonderful students that have worked tirelessly to prepare amazing posters, and we're all going to go check them out after this. It's going to be a reception. It's going to be fabulous. You'll get to talk story with the next generation of carbon solutions people, and we are the last panel here to talk about Wyoming's future, which does include that next generation. So, in case it isn't already abundantly familiar, aloha everybody. My name is Kim Mayfield. I'm a research scientist at Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory. No, I am not from Wyoming. Your state's pretty awesome. I like being here. And I think that I was telling people earlier that I am very excited. We've been on this road trip for a while now with the Roads to Removal Symposium. And I am so excited that the final one is here in Wyoming, because I was here a few years back as part of the REX program, for those of you that know it, essentially early career students working in carbon solutions. And anyway, it was here in Laramie. I had a fabulous time. Scott was a great host. And anyway, we're just really happy to be back. So with that, I would like to get our panelists to introduce themselves. So we're going to be going down the line here. Each of them has a microphone, and they're going to introduce who they are, who they work for, and kind of what they work on.
All right. Thank you. My name is Selena. I am a research scientist at the School of Energy Resources. I'm a social scientist by training, and so I focus on a lot of the parts of our energy projects related to understanding how they're going to impact our communities. I study public perceptions of energy under the guise of social license to operate. Kind of, do communities give permission, or are they accepting of different types of energy technology? And what are the values that are driving that? So I get to work on sort of a broad range of our different energy technologies and projects and understand what those impacts will be to our communities.
Hi, my name is Erin Middleton. I'm from Carbon Solutions. We are a small business. We're remote. We have projects all over the place, but we have 3 of them that are in Wyoming, 2 current and another one starting at the beginning of next year. One of them is a pipeline feed study. That's a front-end engineering design study to say, what would an open access pipeline look like economically? What would it connect to? What are the difficulties that would happen with where it is located? It is helping with some of the information that Matt did earlier with the Wyoming Pipeline Corridor Initiative. Given that that's such a unique resource in the state, or a planning resource, how could that be leveraged in order to have an open access pipeline? How could we make it real? We have a second project that is looking to figure out what a carbon blueprint might look like for the state of Wyoming. At Carbon Solutions, we do 3 different things: research, consulting, and software. So one of the things that we do with all of those things are what-if scenarios, which is how the pipeline is. How big would it be? Where would it go? A third project that is on that what-if scenario is looking, we'll start next year. It's called Trail of the Chiefs, and it is looking at what would a tribal-centric pipeline design look like if it were looking at MHA Nation in North Dakota, the Crow in Wyoming, and then connecting to part of Gillette in Wyoming. So some of our work, again, is saying it's not quite steel in the ground, but it's not quite roads to removal. We're in this middle planning space. Thanks.
Dosnate test 1 2. Dosnate te ina hisse jot that sitna hinani e nina ni na hu ni itha jana da antana ni itha jana da anton na. My name is Coming Women. I'm Andy LeBeau Clifford. I'm from the Wind River Reservation. I'm a proud member of the Northern Arapaho tribe. My father is from the Cheyenne River Sioux out of Eagle Butte, South Dakota. Born and raised all my life on our reservation at Wind River, 2.2 million acres. I served in the Wyoming State Legislature for 2 terms. I sat on corporations political elections committee, labor health, select committee on tribal relations. And so I have a little legislative background and got to learn about a lot of issues important to Wyoming, but particularly to the reservation. Wyoming is home to two tribes, the Eastern Shoshone, Northern Arapaho. We're very unique in that we share our natural resources, but we're independent nations. So we come together, our duly elected officials, 6 for the Shoshone, 6 for the Northern Arapaho, and they form the Intertribal Council. And so they oversee all of our natural resources and make decisions on, in the best effort of our resources and how it could benefit our people. I also work as a compliance officer with our Tribal Employment Rights Office, where we enforce contractors to register with us, to gainfully give jobs when they have federal contracts, state contracts, or just private contracting. They're coming onto the reservation that they employ at least 51% of our natives and get them in jobs. Not only that, but they also train our people. And so they're just not doing the entry-level jobs, but they can move up into gain skills to move on up and get career employment. And so that's a little bit about me. I'm blessed because I do consulting work. Right now I'm consulting with Grid United. It's a project developer out of Houston, Texas. I am a tribal engagement lead. I represent Wyoming, Idaho, Utah. I am the liaison between our Tribal Historic Preservation Office and the project. And what's unique about Grid United is they have brought the tribes to the table in pre-design. They're not going to wait till Section 106 for the federal law. They bring in with all of the crews, the paleo crews, the bio crews. They have the tribal people sitting there. So it's been really awesome, to be a part of that, and something that the reservation tribes, we also work with Oklahoma tribes, North Dakota, South Dakota, all the Montana tribes. So there's a group of 5 women that are composed this tribal engagement team, and we're overseeing, and I'm just learning a lot on how it's important to connect the eastern grid to the western grid. But at the same time, ensuring that they're putting buffer zones, they're respecting our artifacts, or if there's burial, like all those important things are being protected, and we can reroute things. So I'm honored to be here. Thank you.
We are very grateful to have all 3 of you here on this panel today. So I'm going to kick us off here with a little bit of roads to removal framing before I get into my questions for you all. Is in roads to removal, we went a little bit out on a limb with a hypothesis, which is that we would use the federal social vulnerability index, and we use that to try and figure out what counties across the entire United States might be ready to talk story with project developers and come to the table with, having the bandwidth to engage in this. And I've learned a new word being here, high energy IQ. Okay, so it actually sounds like it's kind of working out. So this is exciting. There are a lot of people clearly in this entire room ready to talk about carbon management and carbon management projects and carbon dioxide removal. I wanted to kick it off here with Selena, because our hypothesis had been that Wyoming really came out quite strongly as the state that was best suited to lead the nation, really, when it came to direct air capture with geologic storage. Kind of had the trifecta of really good opportunities that we've heard about today, counties ready to meet the challenge, as well as opportunities. But I'm curious, you've done 2 different studies, I believe, on the social license to operate across Wyoming. What have you been seeing in the data?
Thank you. That's a great question. And I think that one of the big things that we see among Wyoming residents when we've done these 2 different surveys, and these have been surveys of all Wyoming residents, followed up by interviews with people that work closely on these energy topics. And Wyoming residents have reported strong support still for conventional energy. We see that across the board in both studies, the first one done in 2019 and then the second one done in 2022. And then what we see with emerging technologies like DAC, like carbon capture and storage, geologic storage, is that a lot of Wyoming residents are reporting that they're either neutral or not sure about these technologies. We're actually not seeing a lot of people saying that they're against them. There's a couple, but we're seeing people saying that they actually don't know, which I think really speaks to Wyoming residents' energy IQ, that they know what they know and what they don't know. They know the technologies that they're used to living in and around, working in those industries and having them around them, and what those impacts have been. And they know which ones that they don't actually know what the impacts are going to be. And we see residents saying that they want more information about these technologies. They want to understand them better. And we see that as a tremendous opportunity to be doing more outreach and education around these. That is one of our core missions at the School of Energy Resources. So that's an exciting place to be, I think, and a good place to be with emerging technologies. Because that means that there is still an opportunity to build that social license to operate, that we haven't already missed that opportunity yet. We also see Wyoming residents saying that they want to continue to be energy leaders. Wyoming has been an energy leader in so many different energy technologies for so long, and Wyoming residents want that to continue. And they want it done in a way that is in alignment with their values. So we see time and again that Wyoming residents say that they value community, that the main reason that they're here and that they value Wyoming is that the communities that they live and work in, and they want that support to stay in those communities and for those communities to thrive. We also see that they strongly value the landscape and wildlife, and they want energy development done in a way that is going to preserve those values.
And this is a fabulous segue to Andy. We've been hearing a lot today about, from all different kinds of stakeholders in terms of carbon management and things that are being proposed. And now we've heard about the social license to operate. And now I am dying to know, because you've spent time in the House, you work in tribal engagement, what are people actually talking about carbon management and carbon dioxide removal? What do you hear? What are people saying? Fears, interests, excitements? Could you tell us a little bit about what you're hearing?
Great question. I've always heard it from Governor Gordon. Took the lead and he pushed it right when I was serving in the House. But you talk about the res, and you talk about our issues, and not too many conversations, okay? And I think we're not holding them well, and we could be doing better. And we have a lot of great tribal members that graduated from the University of Wyoming. I'm a proud alumni from the University of Wyoming here, and I think we just need to gather them in circles and ask what you all, when you guys are coming to the reservation, you guys are doing all these maybe studies and research, and you guys know more about what I do back home. I mean, I'm on the ground, I'm there, but I'm just not at tables where we're discussing this. So that's could be held better. And our 12 elected leaders, I think we just have to structure it, gather the people that have a passion, that maybe have got degrees and expertise in this, and utilize it more of what we could do. Now, I know there's a big push with our millennials. I have 2 millennials, I have 4 kids, 2 of them are millennials, and the solar, the wind, leaving less of a carbon footprint. I mean, that's all important. And it's always important and tied to who we are as tribal people. The land, the water, how we respect that. However, have we been doing a good job? No, we haven't, because of the federal policies to destroy who we were and our ways of knowing. And we had great ways of knowing. We had scientists, we have astrologists, we know our stars, we know our soils, and all that got taken away. And so we're building back up on what that is and having conversations more about what we need and what we want. And we have great resources. They're underutilized, but we always have to balance that with our values and what's good for the land and our resources, and how to provide economic prosperity, economic development, career-changing jobs, and so that's what's important. So I could tell you particularly what I've done at the Tribal Employment Rights Office is I also serve, my other hat is I'm the board chair of our Wind River Tribal College. And so there was a gentleman that came and he presented what's called the fields, facilitators of innovative education, leadership development, and sustainability. And so what he's done, he's worked with Shoshone-Bannock tribe, he's worked with the Navajo, and now we're going to bring it to Wind River. And I got the support of the business council, both intertribal councils. They were able to let me allocate $30,000 of the Terrell training budget to fields to assess our local and regional economy and what are the jobs and what kind of skills do our tribal people need. So one, they can stay in the community, but they still can work in energy, and where are those jobs at? Because those are high-paying jobs. We understand that. And so they're going to come in and assess it. I got before the Wyoming Indian High School school board. They have a building that used to be a daycare. When we had COVID, a lot of funds came in, and then unfortunately that daycare, it quit a year ago. It just ran out of money. And so we agreed, the board initially gave approval that we can take that building and we can make it a educational learning center. So one with Terrell is, our focus is with the unemployed. So they've already graduated out of high school. And what we do is, the mentor, his name's Doyle Anderson, and he presented, and it's just like, we get them, we hype them up, we get them through high school, they're graduating, and then it's just like they fall off this buffalo jump, and they're lost. Part of it is just because we have to do a better job of how we providing jobs, how are we working with our local industries. We do have oil and gas. We took over managing our own oil and gas companies. That's been a first in the recent years, and we could be doing a better job with that. And so what they're going to do is focus on our registered Terrell applicants that are looking for jobs, that need the skills, but also start working with our high school students. And so, they don't even know what they want to be. Like, they don't even know the opportunities that are out there. And we have to start having those conversations earlier with them. So we'll touch base on the freshman level, and then we start working with them. The program starts working with them in when they're in 11th grade. And then when they partner, the way it needs to be is we'll structure whatever it is in this building that Wyoming Indian's going to give us, and based off the local economy, the industry around us, start training them for hands-on jobs. And that's how Native people learn. We like to see and hear rather than read. That's just how we've learned. And touching and getting into, just like on-the-job training. And so I'm really excited about that. So we'll be working with high school, and then we'll also be working with our unemployed adults. And so this is really exciting. I think it's a unique opportunity. I think it's going to be a game changer. And what we want to do is partner with our energy industry so they can give back. So when we get the kids out of training this program, when they become seniors, they're out there working in that energy sector, but also getting credit as well. And I think that's really important. And so that's something we have going on at Wind River. I think it's pretty exciting, and I'm wholeheartedly, 1,000% behind that. Yeah.
Wow, you all are segueing so perfectly into each other, because my next question is for you, Aaron, and it is specifically about the Department of Energy, which, as many of us in the room now know, it requires a community benefit plan to be written for all of these Department of Energy funding proposals. And now we've heard a lot about what people are thinking, what a lot of people need, and you at Carbon Solutions have been deeply involved in a lot of community benefit plans. How has that DOE structure of CBPs been playing out, and how has it changed the landscape of engagement when it comes to these energy projects?
I really appreciate that this is following what you were talking about for several different reasons. I think one of the exciting things about I've worn a lot of different hats, but one of them has been a demographer. And one of the extremely difficult things is to come across a national data set of comparable data. So your cancer data is by a county cancer registry, and it can completely change on your whole state. I did it in Santa Barbara, California. That one was great. The next county over Ventura was awful, so you couldn't use comparable data. And one of the amazing things that Justice 40 has done is collect somewhat comparable data. I'm going to not talk about data quality across the whole country. So we could actually say, look, we can compare this part to this part in a way that we have not been able to do very easily before. The hard part about this, however, has been to say that in these projects, over such a short period of time, you have to do a thing. Working with tribal governments is difficult. It is difficult for everyone. It is certainly difficult for white people who are coming in on a project that may have no impact that anybody ever sees in 2 years, when it can take contracts 6 months to get going. And so I think one of the things that I loved what you were talking about is like, this is the kind of project that we keep hoping to invest in. And we actually tried to do fields in a couple of our CVPs. But the amount of time that it took to present them to the people that we wanted to present them to, because it takes time and people need to hear about it. And it's not our idea. I mean, do you know what I mean? Like, everybody has to have buy-in. The amount of time that it takes from a proposal drops to the time that you convince somebody what you need to get all of the people going, to get it going and actually delivered, is almost impossible. And so a lot of this, I'm hoping that these kinds of connections can get made. We have a similar kind of project working. Daniel Cardenas is over there. He's one of our folks. And Kim, I'm calling you out too, because Pam Tomsky is helping to develop a leadership program. She's done it for early professionals. We're trying a kind of pilot of how this could work with tribal youth. They're not youth, but I'm old, so it seems like they're youth, students. And so these programs, though, in order to get this going, is much longer than what we're funded for. So I'm hoping that these can start so that when the next rounds of funding come, or when the DAC companies come and say, I would like to invest in something, there's something that's already going that you can invest in instead of inventing a program for the first time. And I think that's been the biggest difficulty with Justice 40. The second thing that I would say is what environmental justice looks like in Wyoming for Wyomingites is very different than what it would look like in Louisiana. I can't say enough about the interagency working group for coal communities in Wyoming is fantastic. The people who are working on it at the state and federal agencies are great. One of the things that the Wyoming Department of Environmental Quality has done is put on their own definitions of what environmental justice means to them. And that has helped with grant making for the state so that you can use the federal government data, or you can say, but in Wyoming, here's how we've defined this for ourselves, and still like check the boxes and have it be meaningful. And so I think all of these things, as much of a administrative hurdle as some of these are, I'm hoping that we can sort of reap some of these benefits, even if the exact CVPs are different, because much of this work people need to do anyway. Like, you need to talk to communities, you need to watch out for who's there, you need to see who's left out and who can come in next. And so I'm hoping we can take some of these best parts as these projects go longer and are more financially stable.
And piggybacking off of that, I hear, Selena, you might have a toolkit that could make this easier. Could you tell us about it?
Yes, I can. So yes, we build what we're calling a community benefits plan toolbox. And it's a collection of resources that can be useful for developing a community benefits plan in alignment with what the Department of Energy has been asking for. And we probably rolled this out close to a year ago, and we're working on it for quite a while before that. As soon as we started working on developing community benefits plans and it became a requirement in these federal grant applications, a lot of people started contacting us and asking us how we were going about doing this. And anyone that has worked on one knows that it's not entirely clear how to go about putting one together, especially in the beginning. They were dense, and I think it took a lot of research and a lot of understanding Wyoming communities to be able to start to put one of these together. And which was a good thing, because it did make you do the research to really understand the communities you were going to be working in and really be thoughtful about what you could do in those communities to have an impact and to benefit them. So we had collected a lot of information, done a lot of research, and had a lot of resources. And so we compiled it all together into a toolbox that's available on our website. It's also available as a PDF. We update it as often as we can with new resources. And we hope that it's a good tool for people that are working on putting these together.
Thank you so much for that. And Andy, I was initially going to ask you a question about who needs outreach around Wyoming. I feel like you made that already abundantly clear, so I'm going to rephrase that question to instead ask you, let's say people are interested in a project, they're early stage, they're late stage, whatever it is, and they would like to talk to you. What homework would you like them to have done before they email, call you, show up at your house, whatever, Instagram you, whatever that is?
Great question, but me, I'm one. My role is to ask questions. My role is to educate you. You're not going to know. We're very complex. We have complex government. We have complex relationship with the federal government, the state, the county. I mean, we just do. And so I'm the one, if you don't prepare but you have a heart, I'm just going to say come with the intent to listen, to understand. Don't come in with all the answers. And I like what you had said. And with me, I got behind it. And I mean, I had to work with my tarot director and my business manager to say fields is the thing. I mean, I had to have multiple conversations with them to get them to buy in. But it had to be me. And then I went to the Intertribal Council and got prepped for it, and and had those discussions, because it was even hard for me as a tribal member to say, oh, is this just another program? But I really believe in it. I'm like 1,000% believe in it. I'm there front and center. You have a key ally here. I'm invested in the tribal communities. I'm honored and fortunate to be invested in ways that most people are not, and I realize that. But I also respect my networks and the relationships I have with the state as well. And so that's what's important. So come and ask me, what do you have to offer us? And as long as we can tweak it a little bit based off our values, and maybe we want, maybe it's 5 things, but maybe Wind River's only ready for 3, then just let us have the 3. That'll be great, and maybe in 5 years from now, maybe we could do the other steps 4 and 5. That's what's important. Does that make sense? I mean, yeah, okay.
This makes perfect sense. Wow, you really lowered that bar to entry to make it so welcoming, and I appreciate it. And now we have all of these wonderful welcoming panelists, and I would like to welcome questions from you all, our fabulous audience. I recognize that we are in between you and your reception and all of your incredible student posters. Anybody here have a question for our panelists? All right. Yeah, don't be shy.
I guess coming from the Treasurer's office, I'm always interested with the dollars and cents. And if you're going to enter into carbon sequestration, one of the questions that you have to answer, whether you're an investor or whether you're an owner of a coal-fired generation plant, is what is the cost of decommissioning and the tail risk associated with that, versus treating your flue gas and sequestering the CO2. And because a lot of times it comes down to a financial decision rather than an environmental decision. In fact, most time, especially if you're a shareholder or you're an investor. And so that's the one question that I think that our office would really like to have some discussion on, and some real hard facts. So when we look at investing, whether it's in a carbon sequestration scenario, or whether we're investing in a coal-fired plant, is that actually knowing, irregardless of what the future holds politically in any shape, that we've actually scored it.
That sounds like
and
you,
it
Aaron.
might be a question that anybody in the room might get back to us on, because that is a very, very hard question to answer, I guess from a panelist view, but it takes a lot of detail.
Not going to answer your question, and I'm happy to open that to the room. But before I answer it, I think one of the things that you're highlighting is in the space. So on almost all of our projects, we have commercial partners that are investing their own money in order to make us successful. So feds have this for many of their different projects. But the tension that I have with the community engagement that has been required is that many times you have to make this a financially viable project. And we often hear you can never engage too early, but the problem is if you engage and then all of the funding goes down, when you engage in communities that have had many waves of people. This can be tribal communities, because I know they have been hit up over and over again with the federal grants. Oh, we need a Justice 40 community. Can we work together? You come in, you make some promises, and then you leave. Louisiana is crazy with the number of people that have gone and said, I'm going to engage often, I'm going to do this thing, and then pulls out because it's not financially viable. And so my addendum to your question, which I can't answer, is if you are taking on this financial risk, at what point is it appropriate and responsible to invite communities to comment on something when there's still a big chance that the whole thing may not go through? Because that's something that we really struggle with in these projects as well.
When is before you even start?
I feel like our panel is going to be punting this question to Scott and giving him homework. We have assigned you this homework. Scott, please connect. You're welcome for the extra work.
Scott.
All right, other questions? We got one over here.
Thank you, that was great. I'm wondering, I really like the discussion around values and what that means for the future. So like, if the population doesn't understand or doesn't know how DACs can help, let's assume it's financially viable for communities. Is there a value clash that would jeopardize the future of decarbonization in Wyoming?
Could you repeat that? A value class that would jeopardize what?
A value clash, like it doesn't align, even though it's financially viable, it just doesn't align with the
Specific
what
to
they believe.
DAC or?
Just decarbonization projects in general.
I see, okay. Yeah, I think it's a really good question, and I really think it's something that we need to grapple with and that Wyoming communities need to grapple with when Wyoming communities are really envisioning what their future will be, and that they really need to be involved in that decision-making process, that it can't be just developers coming in and saying, we're gonna do this project here. And it's why community engagement is so important, and why we're kind of walking this balancing act, right? Of like, when do we go into communities and start talking about these projects before we're really ready to start implementing them, right? But we need to include communities on the ground level of developing these, you know? So I think we do have this real opportunity right now with these emerging industries to include communities as decision makers, to have them be decision makers in this process so that they can decide if it's in alignment with their values, right? The mechanisms of doing that aren't always clear, but it is clear that it needs to be a partnership of some kind.
The closest thing that I've seen to having this discussion, which is difficult because I almost only see this in rich communities that have either the people or the expertise or the whatever to do this, is having either a climate action plan, a long-term plan, or an energy plan for their community. Because in the process of doing strategic planning, it doesn't have, depending on where you are, it can fit under several of these buckets. But having the strategic planning process can bring some of these things to light, like how much do we want to do coal? What is our footprint for solar? What would it look like? How much solar do we want to see? What would communities talk about it? And that's been the only chance that I've seen had this. I've heard a lot of people advocate for communities to do this, but like it takes money, it takes expertise. Who's going to be the local person who knows about the solar siting and the land that they need and those kinds of things. But figuring out how to do that. And I know the EPA has given grants to do climate action planning, and they've given enough leeway that some communities have done like energy action plans instead of climate action plans, depending on which is more important. But I don't know if the states would do that. I don't know who funds it, but that would be the closest opportunity that I could think of having the value decision before a developer comes in.
So I have gotten the signal that we are getting dangerously close here to the reception being ready. So the way that I like to end these panels is I would love it if each one of you could go down the line and in a very brief moment tell me something that makes you either excited about carbon dioxide removal or describe a variable that you think is really important for your ideal project. Okay, you can pick either or. It's up to you.
A variable that I think is very important to every project is public perceptions of that energy project. I think it's not going to be successful if the community is not behind it.
Say almost the same thing, but I would add to it that whomever is funding this has to be together as a group. Sometimes you have odd bedfellows come together that don't have the whole goals for the project in mind and have different ideas of what community engagement looks like, because some of these are massive investments and not all people on the team is on the same page. So community engagement with a team that also is in agreement.
And I'm so fortunate. So what I'm going to do is I go to the embedded leaders in my community. So I go to the embedded leaders for the Eastern Shore, Northern Arapaho. And it's not the expertise in any particular field or anything to do with carbon. It's the grandma and grandpas that everybody go to, and they listen and respect them. So if I educate and sit down with the grandma and grandpas or the aunties and uncles and I tell them about this in a ways that they can understand, and they're like, this is really good, it's going to do 1, 2, and 3 for me, then they repeat that. And it makes it so much easier. So I just focus on my embedded leaders, because my embedded leaders are the backbones of the communities. They're the patriarchs, mainly the matriarchs. And once I get them to understand, then they just share with their families and their big families. So that's what makes it easy.
See, guys, it's going to be easy. Now it's going to be easy for us to end this panel. Thank our panelists. Please give them a very big round of applause. And it's time for close.